I never thought the woman who gave me life would one day be the reason I'd lose my peace. For 10 long years, I paid her mortgage, every single month, no matter what, because she was my mom, and I thought that's what love meant. But the day I stopped, she called me ungrateful, and a few months later she got evicted. Sounds harsh, right? That's what everyone said, until they heard the real story. This isn't just about money. It's about control, guilt, and what happens when a parent forgets that love isn't a transaction. And before we dive in, hit that like button if you've ever done too much for someone who never appreciated it. Because this story, this one, is for the people who got blamed for finally saying no. My name's Adam. I'm 39 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed I owed my mom everything. She raised me alone, worked 2 jobs, and gave up her dreams, or at least that's what I always believed. So when I started earning, I did what any good son would do. I paid her mortgage, but over time, her gratitude turned into expectation, and love turned into debt. 10 years later, she looked me in the eyes and said, "It's your duty." Those 3 words changed everything, because the moment I decided to stop, I didn't just end the payments. I started a war I never wanted. When I was a kid, my mom was everything to me. She was tough, loud, and never let the world see her break. I grew up thinking she could survive anything. We didn't have much. Some nights it was just cereal for dinner, but she made it seem normal. She used to tell me, as long as we have a roof over our heads, we're fine. That roof became her pride. The little house she bought after years of saving pennies. When my dad left, she didn't cry in front of me. She just worked harder. 2 jobs, long hours, no weekends. And I admired her for that. I still do, in a way. But I guess that's where it all started. This feeling that I owed her more than I could ever give back. By the time I turned 27, I had a steady job. Nothing fancy, just enough to live okay and help out. One night she called me over. I still remember the smell of burnt coffee in the kitchen, the stack of bills on the counter. She said, "Adam, the bank's raising the mortgage again. I don't know if I can keep up." Without even thinking, I told her I'd handle it. No hesitation, no conditions. I just wanted to make her life easier. I thought, she raised me for 18 years. The least I can do is pay for the house she loves. It felt right at the time. Even noble, months turned into years. The payments became automatic. Every paycheck, a chunk disappeared before I even saw it. I didn't complain. I told myself it was family. I watched her brag to her friends, saying how blessed she was to have a son like me. That used to make me proud. But slowly, the tone changed. Gratitude turned into habit. Then habit turned into expectation. If I was ever late with a payment, she wouldn't ask what was wrong. She'd just say, "You know it's due today, right?" No thank you, no warmth, just obligation. Still, I kept going. I told myself she deserved it. After all, she gave me life, didn't she? But somewhere deep down, a small voice kept asking, "When is enough enough?" And I ignored that voice. For almost a decade. Because when you grow up being told that family comes first, you don't question it. You just keep giving, until one day, you realize there's nothing left to give. The first few years felt good. I was proud every time I made that payment. It felt like I was finally repaying my mom for all those nights she worked double shifts and came home too tired to eat. She'd smile when I handed her the receipt, call me her hero, and tell her friends how lucky she was. And I believed her. I thought we were a team. Her strength, my support. But what started as love slowly became a lifelong sentence. Every year her tone changed a little more. The soft thank you disappeared, replaced by a casual, "You transferred it, right?" Almost like I was just doing my part in some unspoken contract. At first I brushed it off. Maybe she was tired, maybe she was stressed. But deep down it stung. I worked long hours at a job that drained me. Skipped vacations, turned down nights out. Even broke up with someone I cared about because I couldn't afford to split my income between love and responsibility. I told myself, it's temporary, just until she's stable. But that temporary stretched into 10 long years. There were moments that made it worse, like the time she bought herself a new TV, or when she redecorated the living room and bragged about it online, while I was sitting in my one-bedroom apartment eating instant noodles. I never said a word. I just smiled, told her it looked great, and went back to work the next day. Sometimes my friends would joke about how loyal I was. They'd say, "Man, you're a good son, but your mom hit the jackpot." I'd laugh it off, but it hurt. Because somewhere inside, I knew they were right. Every month, that house tied me tighter to her. Every payment felt less like love, and more like penance. Then came the promise. The one I made without realizing it would trap me. One night, Mom looked at me and said, "You'll keep helping, right? Until it's all paid off?" I nodded. I didn't even think twice. I just said, "Of course, Mom. You can count on me." I meant it then. I really did. But I had no idea how heavy that promise would become. Because the thing about sacrifice is, when it's one-sided, it stops being noble. It starts becoming slavery, disguised as love. And I didn't see that truth until it was already too late. It's strange how love can quietly turn into something else. Something heavy, invisible but suffocating. For years, I didn't even notice it happening. It was small things at first. The way Mom stopped saying thank you. The way she'd talk about her house, never mentioning that I was the one keeping it standing. Then, one day, she made a comment that stuck with me. I'd just told her I might take a few weeks off work. I wanted to travel, clear my head. She laughed, not in a kind way, and said, "You? Go on vacation? You've got responsibilities, Adam. That mortgage doesn't pay itself." Responsibilities. That word hit me like a brick. It wasn't even about money anymore. It was about control. She didn't want me to have a life outside of hers. After that, her tone changed even more. Whenever I tried to talk about my struggles, my exhaustion, my stress, she'd remind me how she raised me all by herself, as if that erased every boundary I had. "You owe me that much," she'd say. And I'd sit there, silent, too scared to answer. The guilt was powerful. It had a way of twisting everything. If I forgot to call her one evening, she'd sigh and say, "I guess I only matter when the bills are due." If I mentioned being tired, she'd remind me of the nights she stayed up rocking me to sleep when I was a baby. It wasn't a conversation anymore. It was emotional chess. Every move I made, she had a counter that left me feeling guilty for even breathing on my own. I tried to reason with her once. I said, "Mom, maybe you should start saving a little, just in case I can't keep up forever." She didn't even look at me. She just said, "You're my son. It's your duty." That word again, duty. The moment she said it, something inside me cracked. I realized I wasn't her son anymore. I was her provider, her backup plan, her safety net. I remember going home that night, sitting in my car for an hour, just staring at the steering wheel. I felt angry, but more than that, I felt used, and ashamed for even thinking that about my own mother. But the worst part? Deep down, I still couldn't stop. Even with all the guilt, the pressure, and the resentment, I kept paying. Because no matter how twisted it had become, part of me still wanted her approval. Still wanted her to say, "I'm proud of you." But she never did. Not again. Instead, she looked at me one night, cold, sharp, and said, "You're doing what any good son should. Stop acting like you're doing me a favor." That sentence changed something in me. It was small, almost silent, but it was the beginning of the end. Because that night, I finally realized, love shouldn't make you feel owned. It didn't happen all at once. Breaking points never do. They build slowly, one quiet disappointment after another, until something small finally makes the whole thing collapse. For me, it started the day I lost my job. 10 years at the same company, and just like that, it was gone. Downsizing, they said. No warning, no backup plan. Just an email and a box to carry my things out. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the numbers in my bank account. Barely enough to get through 2 months. My heart was pounding, but not because of fear. Because I knew what I had to do next. I had to call Mom. I had to tell her I couldn't keep up the payments anymore. I rehearsed it a dozen times in my head. She'll understand. She's my mom. She'll be worried about me first. I was wrong. When I told her, the line went silent for a moment. Then she laughed. "You can't just stop, Adam. The bank won't care that you lost your job. You've been paying for years. Don't ruin everything now." I tried to explain. I told her I needed time to figure things out, that I'd help when I could, but she cut me off. "You're being selfish," she said, her voice cold. "You think you get to take a break from being a son? A break from being a son." That one hit hard. I remember gripping the phone so tightly my hands started shaking. I said, "Mom, I've been paying your mortgage for 10 years. 10 years, without missing a single month. I just need a little time." And she said it, the words that would echo in my head for weeks. "It's your duty, Adam. You owe me that much." There it was again. Duty. Like love was a debt I could never repay. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. My heart was pounding, my throat tight. For the first time in my life, I felt something stronger than guilt. I felt anger. That night, I made a decision. I was done. I wasn't paying another cent. Not until she saw me as her son again, not her bank account. The first month passed, and I braced myself for the fallout. Dozens of missed calls, texts filled with guilt trips, messages from relatives saying I'd abandoned her. It was like everyone had been trained to keep me in line. But I didn't give in. I couldn't. Because the truth was, I wasn't just fighting my mom anymore. I was fighting the version of myself she created. The one who believed that love meant losing yourself. Still, I won't lie. I felt guilty. Every day, I'd drive past that little house and wonder if I'd made a mistake. Wonder if I was the bad guy after all. But deep down, I knew. I wasn't the one who crossed the line. I just finally stopped letting her. The silence came first. For weeks, my mom didn't call. Not a single message. Not even a guilt-laced text. It was strange, peaceful at first. But that kind of quiet never lasts. Because when people like her can't control you with guilt, they find new ways to make you pay. One afternoon, I came home from a short interview. My phone was filled with missed calls from my aunt, my cousin, even an old neighbor. The messages all said the same thing. "You need to check on your mom." My stomach dropped. I knew something had happened, but part of me didn't want to face it. Still, I drove over. The house looked the same from the outside, calm, still, almost frozen in time. But then I saw the red notice taped to the door. Eviction order. It felt like someone had punched me in the chest. My throat went dry. I knew this was coming, but seeing it, that was different. Mom was inside, surrounded by boxes, not packing, just sitting there, like the weight of everything had finally settled on her shoulders. I walked in quietly. She didn't look up. The air was thick with silence and pride. Finally, she spoke. "So this is what you wanted, huh? To see your mother homeless?" Her voice wasn't shaky. It was sharp, like a blade. I froze. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to explain, to remind her I'd warned her months ago. But she didn't want to hear it. She wanted me to feel guilty again. She went on, "You think the world's going to clap for you now? You stopped being a son the day you stopped paying." That one broke me. Because deep down, I still loved her. Still wanted to fix it. But I couldn't. Not this time. Not after everything. I took a deep breath and said, "Mom, I'm not your enemy. I'm your son. I've done everything I could. But you never left any room for me to live my own life." She didn't answer. She just looked at me like I was a stranger. I stayed for a few minutes, helped her move some boxes, and then walked out. The sound of that door closing behind me felt final, like the end of something I'd been clinging to for too long. A week later, she was gone. The house was empty. No curtains, no memories, just echoes of a life built on guilt, neighbors whispered. Some said I'd abandoned her. Others said they saw this coming years ago. I didn't bother defending myself. You can't explain your story to people who've never lived it. That night, I sat in my car outside the house for one last time. The for sale sign swayed in the wind. I thought about every payment, every argument, every sleepless night. And then I let go. Because maybe losing that house wasn't punishment. Maybe it was the only way for both of us to be free. After the eviction, everything felt quiet. Too quiet. No phone calls. No messages. No one asking for help. It was the first time in years that my life felt like my own. And yet it didn't feel peaceful. It felt hollow. I'd wake up some mornings expecting a call from her. Expecting to hear that tone. Half command, half guilt. But there was nothing. Just silence. And in that silence, I started to think, really think, about what had just happened. For a long time, I blamed myself. I told myself I should have done more, earned more, tried harder. But guilt is funny. It doesn't fade when you give in to it. It just grows stronger. And I realized I'd been feeding it my whole life. I went through old photos one night. There she was, young, smiling, holding me as a baby. And I couldn't help but wonder, when did that woman disappear? When did love turn into leverage? I started talking to a friend, someone I hadn't opened up to in years. He listened quietly and said something that stuck with me. You didn't abandon your mom, Adam. You stopped abandoning yourself. That line hit me harder than anything. Because he was right. I'd built my entire life around making sure she was okay, and I'd forgotten to make sure I was okay. I'd mistaken obedience for love, and guilt for gratitude. And it's strange. Once you realize that, you start seeing everything differently. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's control. Sacrifice without appreciation isn't kindness. It's self-destruction. I don't hate her. I never could. She did what she thought she had to do to survive. But so did I. I just wish she could have seen that stepping away wasn't betrayal. It was the only way I could save myself. I learned that sometimes, love means walking away. Not because you don't care, but because you finally care enough about yourself to stop bleeding for someone who won't stop asking for more. These days, I'm rebuilding. Slowly. Paying my own bills, making my own choices, and learning that peace doesn't come from people's approval. It comes from knowing you did what was right, even when it hurt. I still think about her sometimes. Wonder where she ended up, if she's okay. Maybe one day we'll talk again. Maybe not. But if we do, I hope she sees that I didn't stop loving her. I just stopped letting love be one-sided. Because real love, the kind that heals instead of drains, has to go both ways. It's been a couple of years now since that day. Life didn't magically get easier, but it finally became mine. No more waiting for approval. No more feeling guilty for wanting something different. Just quiet mornings, my own small apartment, and the kind of peace that money can't buy. I started focusing on myself again. Really living, not just surviving. I picked up old hobbies I'd forgotten about. Started reading, traveling when I could. It felt strange at first, like I was doing something wrong by being happy. That's what guilt does. It lingers, even when the storm's long gone. But over time, the guilt faded. I began to see that walking away wasn't an act of cruelty. It was self-respect. And maybe for the first time in my life, I understood what that word actually meant. I used to believe love meant sacrifice. That the more you gave, the better you were. But love isn't measured by how much pain you can carry for someone else. It's about balance. It's about giving without losing yourself. There's something freeing about not being needed for survival anymore. I can visit family without feeling used, talk about my life without guilt. And when I pass by that old neighborhood, I don't feel bitterness. I feel release. Every once in a while I'll drive by where her house used to be. It's someone else's home now. Fresh paint, new curtains, a clean slate. And in a strange way, that feels right. The house had become a symbol of everything that was wrong between us. Dependence, guilt, silence. Now it's gone. Maybe that's how the healing began. I still send her money sometimes. Not for the mortgage, just little things. Groceries, a warm coat. But now it's my choice, not an obligation. There's power in that difference. I've learned that life has a way of forcing you to face the lessons you've been avoiding. And the lesson here? You can't save someone who's comfortable letting you drown for them. Today, I'm proud not because I stopped paying, but because I finally started living. Looking back now, I realize this story was never just about money. It was about boundaries, the invisible lines between love and control, between sacrifice and self-respect. For years I thought being a good son meant giving up everything I had, even my peace. But I was wrong. Love doesn't demand that you destroy yourself to prove it's real. Love should lift you, not drain you. I used to feel ashamed for stopping those payments. Now I see it differently. That decision didn't make me a bad son. It made me a grown man who finally understood that love without respect is just guilt in disguise. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You can't heal in a place where you're constantly being blamed for saving yourself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do for someone you love is walk away. Because real love, healthy love, doesn't keep score. And it doesn't hold you hostage to your past. It's not about what you owe. It's about what you share freely, without fear, without conditions. So if you're watching this and you've been carrying the weight of someone else's expectations, remember, you have the right to let it go. You have the right to choose peace over guilt. And maybe, just maybe, when you do, you'll finally see that letting go wasn't selfish. It was survival. If you've made it this far, maybe something in my story hit home. Maybe you've been the one giving too much. Or maybe you've been the one expecting too much. Either way, we all learn. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from the people closest to us. I'm not here to paint myself as a hero or a victim. I'm just a son who learned that love without limits isn't love at all. It's captivity wrapped in care. So, if you've ever been torn between duty and peace, ask yourself one question. When was the last time you did something for yourself, without guilt? Because life's too short to live chained to someone else's version of love. Thank you for listening to my story. If it spoke to you, even a little, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that challenge the heart. Until next time, this is Adam signing off, reminding you that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for others is finally take care of yourself.